Hi there everybody, my name is Kate and welcome to my channel, Trinergy Awakens Naturally. So I want to clear something up. I'm pretty high and tight in what the expectations are that I have for myself, right? And I expect to have them with the people around me the same because they already do. I hang with people that can hang with pressure. You know, that's something that I've built over time. It's also my basic nature just to be able to handle chaotic moments, you know, and deal with them without losing my mind. It was a learned skill, and it's also kind of an innate ability. You know, growing up the way that I did, I had to learn to be okay with chaos, trauma, etc. We all just kind of got used to that. You know, at least at my house, I got used to it. It didn't mean that I was healthily going through it or I wasn't acquiring, you know, some baggage with that. It just means that I got used to the noise and I could dull it out and get to my own space, you know? So the difference with when we're, you know, talking about weeding out, separating the wheat from the chaff, I don't want to give the impression to anybody, because I'm pretty severe about, no, thank you. I don't want to have coffee. I don't want to have tea, because right now the greater work is to pair up with people that really are going to be able to do the work that I came here to do. I'm looking, you know, not so much to socialize. It's not where I am in my life. I'm not looking to socialize, hang out, you know, and just sit in a hot tub somewhere. That's totally fine. If that's what you're doing, have a great time. You know, if that's what you know is your jam, you know, absolutely. However, when people have that lifestyle where they are doing those kinds of recreational things, etc., and they have zero interest in the work that I do, they are off doing their own thing. It does sound kind of severe to say, you know, no, thank you. I really have to spend my time doing this over here. You know, the bottom line though is that my mission and my work is to do high level stuff, you know, in energy. I need to be able to support that, which means I need to be able to ground. I need to be able to spend time, you know, synthesizing and looking at the information that I'm dealing with and, you know, processing that and integrating it stuff. So it's a completely different lifestyle than some other folks. However, it can sound very severe, because when other people feel rejected by somebody they want to hang out with, there's some assumption that just because somebody knocks on a door, that the person knocking on the door can go ahead and assume that the person on the inside automatically is obligated to open the door, let them in, and allow them to be a part of their existence from then on, just because they love the look of that house. It smells good. There's always, you know, the smell of cookies coming from it or whatever, that it really is irrelevant, because, you know, the way that I do my life, the way that you do your life, I don't watch football, you know, and I don't, you know, go to a bar on Friday night to do it and things like that. And I had a friend or basketball rather, he said, you know, you want to join me and we'll go over and watch the game? I'm like, you know, I'll try it. I was trying to be inclusive, less severe, less sharp, less, you know, less something, less than the natural me. And I went and hung out one time, you know, at one of those restaurants where they have the big screens and stuff. And, you know, I told him, I said, I don't watch basketball. I said, this was nice enough, but I won't do this again, because this really isn't even an activity of relaxation and recreation for me either. This isn't how I recreate either. However, thanks for the opportunity to come and see that, yeah, this isn't really about the severity of what I'm saying. It's about the incompatibility of the friendship, that you're going to want to do your recreation some other way than I do. That's a pretty big indicator that we have a lot of those places where you do a lot of those things that are very different than me, that aren't compatible with my lifestyle or how I'm going to be able to cope with, you know, the work that I do, the projects I take on, you know, my job, etc., my 3D job, as well as my, you know, New Earth job that I'm, you know, integrating into, and more into that being my mainstream of income. So, you know, when I'm trying to work with someone or even socialize, call them friends, it's had to get real snappy, because people say, well, I just wanted to, you know, say hi. And I appreciate that so much. I do. However, I have to work. And when people aren't understanding that I appreciate your calling, then I just cut them off. You know, please understand that I'm trying to really work with you here and say, I really don't have time. And what I really mean is, please take those soft cues. If I'm not responding, I'm not engaging, and I'm not really maintaining this thing at a level that you would prefer. However, that's a you thing, and it's not personal. It has to do with we're in a great separation between wheat and chaff right now. The split is happening and the shift in the timelines are deciding. I mean, this is an ongoing process. However, it's super intense right now. And it's a really, really, really awful time, to be taken off our work, especially now when we're finally turned on, most of us, to what we need to do. And we've been working on our skills and, chopping wood, carrying water, chopping wood for years. And we're finally, oh, okay, cool. Now is not the time. However, because people feel the flutter and the activity of a lot of really great, juicy stuff happening along with the chaos, they're going to want to, nurse that chaos through something that feels much better than where they are standing, emotionally or physically or both. So unfortunately, though, unless people are really where we are, sometimes we're just not going to be able to meet that humanitarian thing with, sure, I can hug everybody. We do have to teach people how to hug yourself, and find someone else to hug. You're looking for a hug, go offer one. Perhaps just whatever it takes to 555 change your perception. I'm not saying that's what you have to do. I'm just saying find another way, find another angle, because if the way that you're trying isn't working, that's a block for a reason. It's asking you to rethink that. Sit down for a second and wonder, why is there this pushback, or why am I not making any traction with this light worker who won't call me back or is getting a little bit snappy with me about possibly non-understanding. We're like children when we're thirsty. And we run up on, a fountain, and oh my God, and if anybody's got little cups, on a tray or something, holy crap, that person's, the next place where we're running to, and we're going to run her over, with that resource, because we're thirsty. If we've been real super thirsty, and people are thirsty, they're hungry for the solution to this, and it is coming, it is here, we're here, we have this, we have this under control here. We have this under management. At least in my house, I have my stuff under management. I'm cool. However, which I could help, but I'm gonna help you more by teaching you how to get your own water. But there has to be a certain level of understanding that that's what you need. If we were having those kinds of talks, however, I'm running into people sometimes that they want the comfort of, I really see that you're stable and you're good over there and you understand something fundamentally about this whole thing that I don't. However, over here, I ain't feeling so good about that, and I don't understand it, and I could just really, I'm feeling triggered. And triggered people coming to light workers and starseeds, or people on a mission and a purpose, however you identify, and you really know that's a 5D purpose. I'm down the road with this. That's really, you're not gonna have time to help somebody learn right quick some boundaries without it getting sharp, and I've told people it's not personal to you as in you're bad, it's personal to you as in that we just have an incompatibility. We do not harmonize well together. And I really am working with people right now in the foundational stage. We're in rebuilding almost, We're in the destruction, in the collapse, absolutely. But in those places where the crystalline grid's been worked on, the ley lines, etc., and we're working on this neural network, that's been being established for a long time, and we can't just stop because stuff got real, and we have to keep building, even on a snow day, even on a rain day, even on a day of war, even on the day of fill in the blank with whatever the current horror of the day is. So sounding severe and looking mean, etc., there are many people that just aren't going to understand that I really cannot, I'm going to do this, and you really got to go over there and do that. And cutting them off may be what you have to do. And if that feels so mean, then understand that that's something in you that feels possibly, could be, that you're feeling something that could really be brought up, that is being brought up, that could be healed, that would be able to observe the fact that there's humanity is suffering, and that part of me inside is either still suffering to connect with it, and I need to make sure I govern that very carefully and understand what I'm dealing with, or I'm observing it because I have a heart. However, having a heart and giving that heart to the situation, you're going to lose your efficacy in one of those places. Me as a light worker, and a starseed, etc., I'm going to lose my efficacy as this if I jump into wholeheartedly being the human that sees human suffering and wants to alleviate it right there. Sometimes people have got to be told, look, not now. With little children, I used to teach piano, and you have to tell little children sometimes, sit down. Now's not the time. No, but the rest of the time, we're accepting, we're embracing, we're loving, we're this, that, and the other, so that they understand when I tell you this, no. when people are, not getting the no, those are the pupils I excuse from my studio and said, I know that you want your little girl to be here. I know you do. However, she makes my life a nightmare for 30 minutes, and there's no amount of money that you can pay me to set this kind of trauma into these child's fingers while she's trying to learn the piano. And I just don't want to do that. I don't want to install that in her, and I also just don't want to spend my time like that. The mom cried. The kid was thrilled, but the mom cried. That was a mom thing. That was a mom thing of creating something in her world to appease the part of her that was needy and hungry. So when I feel that same, oh no, I don't want to do that. However, what do you have here? You have something that's being born out of some strange energy that we're going to want to balance. And the only way that we're going to be able to really look at all of that is to stay very neutral. The way we stay neutral is to stay a distance from it, emotionally at a minimum, and definitely energetically, if we can, if we need to. I had to learn because I was being invaded in every space that, why do I feel this? Because when people are hungry, they're frightened, they're, I don't know what to do. I have no idea what's going on. And you seem to know. When I'm scared and I think somebody knows what's going on, I'm going to want to talk to him for 20 minutes interviewing. Well, what's going to happen? How's this going to work out? What do I do if? Unfortunately, though, one person can't carry the conversation with 8 billion people. They can't even carry the conversation with one person who can't carry the conversation. So sometimes you have to cut that loose and say, look, it's time for you to go and look at why this is such an issue for you. However, either way, I have to go now. My purpose is in doing something else. It's not that you are not worth it. It's that you and I are not speaking the same language, 11:44. And right now, I don't have time to be a universal translator to sit down and try to figure out how to best help you as one person. I'm working for the collective good of all humanity. If I stop on any one person in any one place, even with my own butt hurt, if I stop and sit there, land there, and stay there, then I'm not doing what I came here to do. And it's, this is timed evolution. There's stuff happening every moment, that yes, it's governed. However, there's a tighter way, 12-12, that can run. There's a smoother way for me to be better in alignment with it. And if I'm actually consciously working to do that, I'll be far more successful than if I'm sitting here trying to explain to you how to do that, why I do that, or that maybe you would consider, doing. No, none of that. So I hope that's helpful for you in some way, and I hope that you enjoy your day no matter what part of the day you're in. And remember to get within your skin, because you're divine. It's absolutely fine. Even if your mind isn't right now, divine is fine. And it can keep you balanced and in line. However, if you have somebody ringing your doorbell every 10 minutes, it's going to make the effectiveness of your work you're doing on the inside, even if you have 12 straight hours and somebody rings your doorbell, twice an hour, you won't get anywhere near as much work done as if you take a full half hour to say, look, here's what this is. And then you work with those people at whatever level they'll let you release them. And I quiet release, just quiet block and move on every time I can. And when I have to have the verbal, I do. But I get kickback in the energy either way. That's a you thing. It's a you thing, and I have other work to do that is more important than stopping for one. If I'm not stopping for me to feel sorry for myself and you shouldn't have to do this, if I'm not stopping to do that, then I'm not going to stop and figure out why you can't pick yourself up when you don't know. So take care of yourself, as I said, and I'll see you again next time, friends. Mwah. Bye.